the intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today, taking a look at Solo Armadas. We've had several days to kind of run through these. We're going to go over crews, strategies, and the overall thought process that you need to be going through when you're putting these together and setting up your Solo Armadas. Now, the basics of this, remember, you can launch a Solo Armada and bring 3 ships. Just you, nobody else. You can bring 3 ships. Now, that does not mean you can only use 3 ships. We'll talk about that here in a second, the differences between the two. Is it Rev being squirrely? It's Rev being squirrely. That's Cerritos actually coming to use. Yay, the Cerritos matters. We thought it was PvP, but the truth was, it was Armadas. Anyway, what we're gonna do is take a look at some of the crews that I use and show you that even if you're a mid-level player, we talked about, oh, well, these are so strong. You could be level 35 and still winning these Armadas and working towards your progression and getting out your faction rep for the new Bajoran faction. Yes, you can. You watching this video, believe it or not, even as a lower level 35, which is the first as you can start, you can do this. Now you're like, oh, well, they've got 3 epics. I don't have 3 epics, Rev. Cool. How about 2 28s and a 26? It comes down to officers, research, and understanding your game. You can pull this off as well. And remember, power doesn't mean anything. Look, you got 4.4 million versus 22. That is basically 1-to-5 ratio. That is outside of what the typical battle power ratio we talk about sometimes being is. It's all about officers, your research, and building a crew around an idea, and that idea is working together. So if you're excited about the video, hit the like button. I want to show you. So let me show you what I'm running first of all. So first ship I want to show you is my Augur. Augur is currently running Cisco, Miles O'Brien, and Giorgio. Reason being, why, Rev, would you do that? Well, Giorgio is to activate burning. Remember, burning works for the target. So any ship that uses a burning officer or a burning ability can take effect with only 1 burning officer. So for example, I'm going to use 3 ships. If I had Ash Tyler on the Enterprise, Ash Tyler matters and works even though Giorgio's over here. Burning affects the target. Hull breach works the same way. We'll see that in a second. Then I've got Cisco. Now, if you have not unlocked Cisco, we will discuss other crews. The main reason I have Cisco here is for this right here. Cumulative increasing on my critical hit chance. We're going for big damage, big booms, big criticals. That's what I have found generally to be the most successful when going through this. Combining that with mitigation, which you get from Cisco's Captain's ability, increases armor, shield deflection, and dodge by X%. In this case, I've got synergy with Miles, 9% when health stacking. Now, one little thing that you're going to keep in mind here is those exocomps you've been using or saving and never using can actually matter here. We've been talking about that pretty heavily in the Discord. Exocomps can matter, especially when you talk about those health exocomps or those stat exocomps that maybe have gotten ignored for so long. So that is crew number 1. My crew number 2 on my Valdor is Riker, Beverly, Khan. Now, why am I running Riker, Beverly, Khan? Khan is a critical officer, so we're doing criticals again. We'll talk about the outlay of these Armadas in a second, but the crews, critical builds being big for me. Then I've got Riker. Riker is a cumulative damage growth every single round. Remember, if the damage is getting bigger, then you got it, the criticals are getting bigger. We want that. We want those big, nice, yummy criticals. And then finally, Beverly, again, mitigation officer. We want to get our mitigation as high as possible going through this. And then finally, I use my Enterprise essentially as a support ship, but I will work on it as well. So I've got Kirk here, 5 of 11 as captain. 5 gives me 2 things. 1, she gives me a loot bonus, but she gives me mitigation. Kirk keeps my shields up, and then I'm running Lorca. Why am I running Lorca? For hull breach. For those that don't remember the math, here's how math or damage is processed in the game. Damage creators. This is all your research, officers, blah, 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 blah. Damage. Takes all your weapons damage, your min-max, multiplies by all those percent. So you got damage, and then you've got criticals. The critical right here comes afterwards. You take all that damage, and then you would multiply it by, my instance, 2.6. And then after that, hull breach adds another multiplier. So you have essentially 3 layers to your damage creation. And if you've got multiple ships running critical builds, which is what I do with the Valdor and with the Augur, boom. Now, what did this result in happening? Like, how effective was this for rev. Well, I did not beat a 48, which would have been pretty tough. I mean, I ended up damaging about 40% of it, but what I did do is take down a 46 without a ton of effort. Now, I will go ahead and tell you that I did Cerritos buff 2 of my ships. So I Cerritos buffed the Augur and I Cerritos buffed the Valdor. My Valdor didn't take much damage, and in terms of round length, went 18 rounds. And this is where it becomes kind of a key. So I'm able to take down as a level 43 with these 3 ships, a 46 pretty handily. Now, let's talk about what I can do past that and why and how these armadas are built. Now, one good thing about these is they are not built in a confusing way. If you take a scan, you can see that their attack defense, but particularly their hull health number is pretty high, DPR decently strong, but they don't have amazing piercing stats, and they are not critical based builds. So you don't want to run Picard Beverly Gala here. It's kind of wasting your time because they're not crit builds. The best way to come at these armadas is to build for mitigation and then damage. Mitigation damage. So critical builds with hull breach, or using like I did with burning with my Augur. That is going to be a great way to get big success in this. And if you take a look at some of the screenshots we've shared, like take a look here, you can see similar ideas. You can see this D4. These are all tier 3 from a level 35, running Cisco in that crew, running the TNG crew for taking away crits completely, and then mitigation up there with the Augur, of course, running supplements next to it. Let's even go past that. Go back to this other one that we looked at. Look, 5 mitigation right here on the Mayflower. Mitigation builds being critical to what we're trying to put out here. Mitigation builds are going to be the key. Now, the good thing is, if you look at the rares and epics, so all these are basically uncommons, but you look at the rares, they're designed the same way. Epics designed the same way. They're mostly hull health. They punch really strong. They don't have great piercing stats, and they don't have great critical builds. So what this ends up meaning, let's take a look at me hitting a 46 in the battle log. So right here, we'll bring out our handy dandy calculator. Battle log, let's take a look at what we've got. So Jemadar is going to hit my Augur. How much am I able to just kind of deflect off a little bit with my Augur? So 433,299 divided by 609,914. Man, 71%. It's not maxed out, which would be 71.19, but that's still hecky good. We'll take that. Okay, how about this one? What's our Enterprise doing? Enterprise took a critical hit. You got to worry about those hurting a little bit. Well, 984,590, 51.3%. So this is where I did not stack enough on that Enterprise, and it ends up taking a little bit more damage than I wanted it to, but that's okay. Remember, the Enterprise is the one I can kind of worry about the least because those shields are always staying up. Now let's get to our Valdor. All right, I'm glad that you hit 2 ships at once. It's actually interesting, but where do you hit my Valdor? Where do you hit my Valdor? Poor Valdor getting ignored here. Man, I feel bad. My Valdor just, I mean, there, finally, a shot to the Valdor. 353-550-656-833, 53.8. So again, didn't have my mitigation as high as I should. I should have stacked my stats under Beverly a lot better than I did. I see my problem there. Stat stacking will be an issue, but keep in mind that I'm also punching up. And the basic idea of these armadas is you're essentially going level to level. If you can do, if you're level 35, you're expected to beat a level 35. So let's go down to like that level 35, and this is going to be one in this system. Let's take a look at those. These are the low tier ones, 22 million. Let's take a look at these stats. So right here, armor piercing 78K. Let's compare that to my D4 since I've got my D4 here. My D4's defense is 185,000 dodge. You look at the accuracy here, 68K. So it does not have enough piercing stats for a level 35 armada to overcome the basic stats of a level 34 ship. Going level by level, you can find a pretty good meta in terms of putting these officers together and finding success. Now, I will say, as you level up, this does not become as easy because the game basically expects you to keep getting ships at your tier. This could change strategy in the future. What I mean by this is a lot of the higher levels that I've talked to have had issue with the loot grind because they can't punch up to the biggest of these armadas because they've done what a lot of us have talked about doing. They've taken their time. They've not gone to the biggest, baddest of the armadas. They have to settle for lower, which means when they go to their uncommon loot exchange, they have to settle for less because they're not getting, I've got 2 strong epics plus an uncommon at 43. The equivalent of that, if I was a level 53, would be to have like a Corvus, a Tribune, and an Enterprise A, and that Tribune Enterprise A be high tier. Well, nobody really does that at the upper levels, and there really is to be an argument to the higher level in terms of the devs covering higher levels that we talked about this on Twitch. They've got to scale that back. They've got to make that more realistic for those players to be able to go after those items, because right now it's a grind not really worth going. But for me, because I have ships appropriate to my level and appropriate to my tier, because I camped and I didn't skip stuff and I made my things good, well, looky there, I'm ready to go. It just happens to be specific to me that it works out that way. I do think that it's not realistic to expect a level 53 player to have a maxed out Tribune, maxed out, Enterprise A and a Vorcha, even though that would be super, super sexy. Realistically though, if you are a mid-tier to any mid-tier player, 35 to 45, these mechanics and this armada is not hard to do if you take these basic principles in mind. These armadas are not built on high critical damage. They are built on the fact that they are long lasting. They will go 15 to 25 rounds on you. You've got to be able to survive it, which is where mitigation comes in, and you've got to be able to punch it, which is where critical builds and hull breach and burning all coming together to play a major role to give you the victory for this. Now, we will cover this a little bit differently with higher level players because strategies are slightly different, but overall, this is how you do it. Do not forget, exocomps become very, very valuable here. You can take a look at my exocomps if you want to. I was using 3 at a time. I will go to my combat exocomp. I'll use my armada ones. And I'll go to my empty multi-purpose. And then I'll also do, don't forget these, your empty galaxy exocomps. You've got these officer bonuses that can help you out if you're trying to stat stack. So that's the video. Those are the answers. Crews here that you can use. There's several different variations, but what it really comes down to is understanding the basic principles. If you've got officers that can boost your mitigation, boost your damage, and build around criticals, that's what you're looking for. But if you need more specific help, I'm always willing to give it. The only ways you can do it, hit me up in Discord or drop in the comment section down below and let me know your thoughts. But if you're level 35, you can do it. If you're level 43, you can do it. And if you're level 53, you can definitely do it. Live long and prosper. Stay safe for their space cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next one. Solo Rev out.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.